This is the Team Objection podcast for January 23rd, 2020. Still kind of weird saying that, even though it's been a little while. Episode 422, and if it's going to sound kind of like episode 421, it's because last week we started looking back at the best of the decade. We realized quickly we didn't have enough time to get to everything, so we're just going to go ahead and do the second part of that this week, except for Dave, who's going to do the first part of it in the second part because he wasn't prepared, but now he is.
We bit off way more than we could chew, which we do a lot.
Yeah.
Dave was not prepared, though. That's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then, we went long. That's really what it was. It's just we went really long.
He did not have a movie list last week. Don't let him try to put it on like, hey, I'm with you guys. We all made the same mistake. Well, no, you didn't. You weren't prepared.
I have a movie list that I certainly did not finish up about an hour ago.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Nope. Perfect. So
before we all dive into games, which is going to take up the entire episode because all of us are pretty big gamers, and it's been one of the core focuses of the show from the start, we'll knock out Dave's movie list because he does have the right to give it off.
Yep, and I actually saw 10 movies this year, in this decade, I mean. So
you saw exactly 10, so you're going to do the list? No. Are we running into fucking Gary where he's like, what was it? One of the Spider-Man was in his top 25 games because he only played 25 in his life?
No, it's not that bad. I saw more than double, at least 10. I'm pretty sure I saw 25 movies total.
Thank God.
So anyway, still pretty bad, but all right.
I know. Well, I just don't see movies. Anyway, number 10 I have is Her because it was unique and fun, and I thought it was an interesting concept, especially the ending.
That's not a bad start.
Okay, number 9, How to Train Your Dragon, which I thought I would hate. I thought I would absolutely hate, but I liked it.
That's like Maisie's favorite animated movie. So
it's surprisingly good. I really thought I was going to hate it, but I didn't.
You're allowed to continue so far.
A rare win for DreamWorks, and to be honest, if that had flopped, I feel like we might not have a DreamWorks anymore.
You might not. You're not wrong because DreamWorks kind of sucks overall.
I want to look up DreamWorks.
What about Despicable Me? I don't give a shit.
Yeah, but Despicable Me sold a boatload of tickets.
Oh, no, it's a great. So I don't think they would have caved from it, but having both of those franchises sort of coexist in the late 2000s and then into the 2010s, that's good.
What was the joke? The Minions only appeal to baby boomers.
Mm-hmm. They're the ones who use the memes of them.
That's so funny because that's the most true. I hate it.
I hate Minions so much. They're my least favorite thing in movies. Anyway, number 8 is going to be the Lego Movie.
It was on my list.
I love that.
I think. It was on my honorable mention.
Honorable mention. I loved that movie. I thought it was funny. I thought it was... it spoke to me as a kid. Emmett's character spoke to me as a kid who followed the instructions all the time building Legos, so it spoke to me a little bit.
Don't let the mediocre sequel take the shine off the original.
Hey, I actually like Lego Movie 2. It's not as good as 1.
No, I mean, it's not bad or anything. It's just I think the first one's really good, and I think the second one's fine.
Yeah.
I think we're underselling DreamWorks a little bit, just right, because Shrek was DreamWorks.
Yeah.
Kung Fu Panda.
Mm-hmm.
And they also had Shark's Tale and Monsters vs. Aliens, but some big hits.
Yeah, but
among the misses.
What of those were recent that you just said? Because Shrek's not.
Kung Fu Panda was kind of recent.
No, that's 2007.
No, but the sequels, they were all billion. Here, I'll look up. Keep going. I'm gonna look up Kung Fu Panda.
But I'm not talking financially. I'm talking critical acclaim.
Oh.
Yeah. There's no doubt they make money, but they're fucking least common denominator bullshit movies. So sure,
they
can
Kung
make
Fu
money.
Panda.
Sure, but again, that was 2006. What's recent from them?
Kung Fu Panda 3 was 2016.
It's not a good movie.
Yes, it is. I'm gonna look up the Rotten Tomatoes.
I like that this started an argument of something that's not even on my list.
Yeah, I know. Keep going though.
Damn you, DreamWorks.
Number 7, I have Guardians of the Galaxy. First superhero movie that I really dove into. I loved it. I thought it was fun and goofy, and it was just, I don't know, overall it was just fun.
When did you watch that one? Was that because we recommended it, or did you just do that on your own?
A little bit of both. I was on an airplane, so that makes it the best.
Okay. All right, that's okay.
This is good though because we haven't actually heard this before now. This is new to us that he had actually watched another one of these because you told us you were watching a couple other of the Marvel movies, but not that.
I've seen 1 and 2 of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So I've seen both. Number 6 is going to be The Last Jedi, which a lot of people hated it.
Controversial.
I know, but out of the 3 Star Wars movies, is one that I probably enjoyed the most. I like the subversion of expectations. So
Neckbeards would tell you it's not even the 6th best Star Wars movie, let alone the 6th best movie of the decade. But I don't hate it.
I would probably put it 3 or 4 out of the Star Wars movies, but
we'll rank them at some point.
At some point. Number 5. Number 5 is gonna be Toy Story 3. We talked about it last week. I like Toy Story 3 more than 4, so it's on the list. Ending gets me every time. Number 4 is Coco, which stunning visuals, story that kind of sort of makes me cry at the end of it. It's amazing.
I was looking up Toy Story 3. It is 2010. I think we probably covered that, but I didn't remember.
It just barely squeaked in.
Coco was okay. It was good, and I liked the message and the music and stuff, but I thought it was okay.
It's cool to see those heritages represented on the big screen.
Yes, the diversity was great.
I heard people fawning over it. I think it's good. Don't get me wrong. I do not think it's bad or anything. I didn't love it.
I loved it. I don't know if it just spoke to me. It's just the ending when he's singing "Remember Me" to his grandma. It's just like I can't control it. It's beautiful.
Apparently, unless a Pixar movie involves toys, I don't love it. That's the trend recently.
I love Pixar. I love almost all Pixar movies. Not Finding Dory though. That is not on this list because that movie.
Thank God. If that had been number 1, we would have stopped immediately.
Yep, that's fine. It's not on the list.
You're not cut off yet, but you're getting close with Coco.
Number 3 is Get Out. Fantastic horror movie. Fantastic horror movie. I thought it was. I don't know. I don't see a ton of horror movies, but yeah, I liked it a lot. So.
I thought that it was cool because it's a horror movie that was good and it was funny. And all that on the surface level worked, but then there's like this deeper layer that you can like examine and be like, whoa, this is actually really like relevant. And I feel like that was not the same with Us.
I wanted to see the Us, but I have not seen it.
It was cool, but like the message is pretty muddled, in my opinion.
I don't know. It's just the ending when his TSA agent friend picks him up. He goes, "I am TS motherfucking A." It just it cracks me up every time. Number 2 I have is Baby Driver. Absolutely love this movie. I thought it was a fun action, like kind of heartwarming love story. I mean, Kevin Spacey's the bad guy, which no shock there, but I don't know, man. I love that movie. I was intrigued and entertained the entire time.
Unintentionally suitable casting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I drive, Dave. So when you're curious and you're like wondering why, I need to be the apocalypse driver, you should watch Baby Driver.
I'm calling bullshit on you. You don't even have a manual car. Like,
I'm really good at driving manual. I couldn't find one. I tried on my new car. It's
I thought
like
you were looking for, yeah.
I was. It's like impossible these days, man.
It is kind of hard, but yeah, I don't know. Some of the moves he made in that movie, like I know they're kind of impossible, but damn, they're awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a cool movie.
Yeah, I loved it. Number 1, which stunned me going into the Spider-Verse. Just so good.
The whole decade, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I could watch that movie repeatedly and still get new things. The music is fantastic in it. The animation is stunning. The movie overall is just good. All the characters interact really well.
Isn't it funny that like one of the biggest accolades is the animation style, and that was like the biggest sticking point people had in the trailers?
It is jarring. At least till you get used to it. I remember in theaters the first 5 minutes or so, it was just that 30 frames a second kind of look instead of 60 just throws you off a bit. But once you get into it, it's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
So I could see why for a trailer, if that was like a 30-second exposure to it, I get where it was coming from. It was misguided.
Yeah. Kung Fu Panda 3, 87%. 2, you're thinking of 2. 2 was really bad. 2, I almost didn't make it through. And I make it through every movie. And I'm like, why am I watching this? This is boring.
It might be. I honestly couldn't tell you a single fucking difference between 2 and 3. And that's not really 2 or 3's fault, but I guess that is probably the bad taste of 2.
3 was cool. 3, like, you got all the baby pandas. He goes to the panda village.
It's like the only way you can go with one of these animated movies all right, well, now they're having babies or handing it off, like Cars 3. It's been a handoff to the next generation type of thing.
Well, like, I feel like How to Train Your Dragon 3 did the same thing. It's like, now we return to the homeland. It's like, that's what exactly, there's like a template for this stuff.
Yep.
It makes a lot of sense. All right, well, Dave's list, I'm going to give a 6.5 out of 10.
I will give a 7 out of 10. It was pretty good. There were more like actually critically acclaimed movies than I was expecting.
No, and it's part of it. Like I haven't seen a bunch of the critically acclaimed, one of the Oscar winners and stuff like that. But I like what I like, and a lot of it's animated. So
yeah, me neither. And I won't apologize for liking more pop culture things than critically acclaimed things. I don't care.
You should expand your horizons, Dave, because the critically acclaimed stuff is really good. Still,
you're not wrong. And most times I see movies like that, I'm like, oh wow, I can see why this was good. But still, I don't know. I just never think of it.
Not always though.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, I didn't even watch this movie, but the Phantom Thread, I don't know if you ever saw the trailer. I'm like, this looks like horse shit. It looks like a bunch of great actors saying a bunch of bullshit to each other. And, like, but it's an Oscar because it's Daniel Day-Lewis talking.
They lobby properly, you know?
Yeah, right.
Such a good actor.
Yeah.
All right, well, then we have to get to games. And the question, I suppose, is games is my list with air quotes, but all three of us have one. So how are we doing the order on this?
We want to just do 10, 10, 10?
It doesn't matter to me. You or I should start, though, because Dave just went.
That's true.
Other than that, I don't really care. I'm happy to jump in, and then Dave can go second, and you can end the thing.
I probably have the longest honorable mention list, so maybe that's for the best.
That is true.
Go ahead, Shaun.
I also have just a really short honorable mentions list. So I put a lot of time and thought. This is my favorite games of the entire decade. And I think this is like, this means a lot. People are going to listen to this and be like, wow, I need to check out these games if they haven't already. You know, we're setting the standard here. I just want you all to understand before we get into this.
Oh, okay.
I want you to treat it with the gravity it deserves. This isn't some Joe Schmo list.
I'm waiting.
Is it going to start sometime tonight, or?
Okay, so
God, there's only so much fucking foreplay I can take.
Yeah, my first honorable mention. I have three, only three.
Okay.
Halo 4. Halo 4. Don't Dave.
Well,
you never even played it. You have no clue.
In looking at many lists of critically acclaimed lists, I did not see this one, which kind of surprises me actually.
Yeah, because people are over Halo. But
fair.
This was the best Halo probably that's ever been done. And I know there's probably somebody that's like, but the multiplayer in Halo 2 was fantastic. I don't give a shit. I play games for the single player.
Yep.
So the multiplayer can suck it.
And that's where 4 excelled, because it seems like in gameplay mechanics and multiplayer, 4 was not bad or anything, but retreads almost.
No, the shooting was exquisite, like it always is with Halo. Like it's always really, really good. They're on another level.
Yep.
But like for once, we got a story that like mattered, that people cared about, with an actual like character journey for multiple characters. You get emotional at the end. How many times did Halo 1 through 3 get you emotional?
I don't even think I got any emotion.
Yeah.
I mean, I had about as much emotion as Master Chief does.
Yeah, right. So he actually shows emotion. Like, I mean, for him, he's still Master Chief, but like, you actually start to understand, like, oh, he cares about this computer, the person. So that's really nice. Yeah. And it's just like the music starts like swelling as you get near the end. I'm not gonna spend this much time on all of them. I just really want to sell Halo 4.
All right, honorable mention.
Gwent. It's great. It's the best card game in the last decade.
Was that a standalone game, or is you saying a game within a game is your honorable
mention? No, it started a game within a game, and then it became a standalone game that is way better than what's the one I'm trying to throw shade on, but I can't remember.
Hearthstone.
Thank you.
Or Pazak.
I don't. Well, yeah, that doesn't count. That's in a game. This is out of a game.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was great. It was really. I don't know what to say. I wanted to get a shout out to Gwent.
Mm-hmm.
And then Red Dead 2.
I thought I was going to sneak in the bottom of your top 10.
It almost did, but like, it's too indulgent. It is an exercise of excess, like really bad, but it's one of the only games to make me cry. So like, I had to give it some love. Like what it does well, it does really, really well. It's just like too much. But if you can cut through it, you get an awesome experience. So those are my honorable mentions.
All right.
Dave, when you're like petting your horse and he's like, thank you, and your horse is dying,
does he actually say thank you, or is
he
kind of...
you have to get full horse bonding. I almost said bondage.
Never go full work. I don't know.
You never go full horse bondage.
Yeah, you go full horse bonding, and your horse gets shot, and John Marston's like, come on, we gotta go, and Arthur's like, hold on a minute. And he like holds his horse, and he's like, shh, it's okay. And then he's like, thank you. And it's like, oh my God. It was great. I was not expecting that in that moment in that game.
Yeah.
I was fucking pissed because a scripted event killed my horse that I've had for the whole game, but then it was worth it because they did it was worth it for the emotion it caused, The number 10, XCOM, Enemy Unknown. This is have you played this, Dave? You're nodding.
I'm nodding because I remember you talking about this probably like 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's like one of the best strategy games ever. And I really, whenever I talk about in a lot of gaming, the best games have the curve where like it's kicking your ass and you don't even know if you can do it. And then like you get over the hump at some point where things start like clicking and you start feeling competent. And you're like, I can do this. And this game is maybe the best example in video games because it's so punishing, but then you get like a good economic month and you're like, and you feel alive again. Probably a lot of this is nonsense to you, but the progression is really good. Plus, you can name and customize your people.
Yeah, you get attached to them that way.
Yeah, so I know Lincoln did like a bunch of people around the house. I did a bunch of like classic video game characters. Samus was the sniper. Like, it was cool. So that was fun.
Real quick, quick aside. When you guys played games like back in the day, like early Final Fantasy games or Chrono Trigger stuff, did you guys rename the characters? Because I did that all the time to like all the people I knew.
I used to.
As a kid, yes. Now I hate doing that.
Yeah, now I don't.
Yeah, I agree. But as a kid, Chris, you were in a few games.
Yeah, which is ironic because back then, when I renamed them, it made it much harder for me to look at guides or something because it'd be like, give Isla this equipment, and I'm like, who the hell is Isla?
Yeah.
I tried doing that with the first time I played Final Fantasy VI. I put like friends' names, and then there's so many characters. I'm like, I'm running out of people. Like, I don't know who to put. It's
funny. I remember some characters from 6, like Rachel. I have to think really hard about what her real name is because she's Rachel. That's just who she is. Celeste is the real character's name. Yeah, that's funny that you bring that up.
That'd be ironic when Locke is talking about the dead Rachel.
It was. Yeah, I was like, wait, what?
Hold on a minute. What are you talking about?
That was bizarre, yeah. Skyrim is number 9. I don't think I loved Skyrim as much as everybody else, but I spent a lot of time in Skyrim.
I've heard nothing but good things from people.
And it's like one of the best open world RPGs like ever made. So I had to give it some love, even though I'm probably like a little bit lower on the fandom of Skyrim than some.
It's a bit of a buggy mess at times, and that's kind of Bethesda's staple in their open world games, but even so, it overcomes that in pretty much every occasion.
I've had to go back hours a few times. I mean, like months, because I had like a lot of save files, and I found out that like I'm bugged on a quest for like ever. So I have to go all the way back and do the quest so I can get the achievement, and then I can go back to the present.
Oh, I give up on that shit so fast.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sucked. But the Daedra quests, I'll give a special shout out. That's what a lot of the side quests are like, but the Daedra quests are like where that game is for me. I did the Daedra quest and the guild quest. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a main story. Who cares?
Typical Bethesda.
Yeah. Odyssey, Super Mario Odyssey. I really debated Super Mario Galaxy 2. Because that's excellent. But Odyssey just takes everything that game did and then does it better. And some.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to go back to old Mario games once you play the newer ones. Because, like, little things, like I've been trying to play Mario 64, just like an old Mario 64. I'm like, why can't I wall kick easily? This is really hard.
The timing is so different.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's amazing because, I mean, Odyssey has so many different movement options that, like you said, going backwards doesn't feel especially great anymore.
Yeah, so I mean, some of the best level design ever. So it's not just that you take Mario and you do the moon, so you don't have to like queue up the level every time. You find a moon, you just keep going.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's so many of them, and it's so rewarding. But then you also have some of the best level design Mario's ever had. It's nice in HD. It's on the Switch, so you can play it portable. Like, it is the whole package.
It's a spiritual successor to both Mario 64 and the Galaxy series. It's just it does both of them better, I think. Although I was with you, I was close on Galaxy 2 as well, but to me, that thing you just mentioned was the key difference, which is get a moon, keep going. You don't have to start back at the start of a level or go to some hub. You just explore and you find stuff, and it feels good all the time.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and not an over-reliance on, like, the gimmicks, which I like, too.
Yeah,
I kind of like purity in my Mario experience as much as possible.
They had the throwback 8-bit little parts of the levels.
I liked that a lot.
Those are good in short bursts. All the power-ups are just used enough to feel fun, but not too much. Like you never the hummingbird or the stretch leg plant or whatever for too long.
Yeah.
Just really well done.
Yep. Breath of the Wild. So 2 Switch games back to back. A lot of people would have had this higher. I've seen it.
Probably most people's game of the decade.
Yeah. It's, I love the open world. It's excellent. The shrines are the best new addition to a Zelda game. We're probably, I hope that's a thing that continues because that was game changing. Being able to do, and for portable, because I imagine a lot of people did play it on portable. Being able to do a bite-sized shrine, you get a little reward. The level of thought that went into this game is insane. The freedom and the flexibility and everything that you can do with the mechanics. I just really miss some of the level design of the dungeons. For me, that was really lacking.
Yeah.
And it's hard when you do an open world. It's hard to have that linear experience because where are the players coming from? You have to be aware of that. There's a lot of things that change when you go to open world.
Yeah, you can't have remember that item you got in the last dungeon? Use it on this one. Oh, wait, you didn't get it? Shit.
Yeah.
Which is why, as much as people, I don't want to say rip, but people call out the get an item in a dungeon, use it in that dungeon formula, but it works for that very reason because then you have a guarantee that this is something your players will have as you construct the rest of this finely crafted dungeon.
Yeah, so, but I mean, it's excellent. It's really good. The music is great. They took sword fighting up to another level, which was cool. Everything feels really good. It's just the items breaking. I not to bitch, but that just annoyed me. It seemed to serve no other function than irritating the player.
Yep.
And the level, the dungeons, the main dungeons, I wish could have been, maybe just a little more linear. I would have appreciated.
I don't know, the Divine Beasts. Those I kind of consider the main dungeons, and I thought those were fun.
They're fun, but they're not. For me, it wasn't the same magic as almost every other Zelda that I've played.
There's something about just walking into a dungeon or a temple for the first time and being like, cool, I'm going to be here for the next 2.5 hours, just fumbling my way around and figuring stuff out, because those are almost always exquisitely laid out.
But the shrines, the shrines are I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's like a miniaturized version of the dungeons in a way. I wish you could do both. If the next one could incorporate some element of shrines, maybe fewer for the sake of balance, and some long-form dungeons, that would be the pinnacle for me.
Yeah. God of War. Because, and so we're going to start to see here, for the most part, a lot of the top games we're moving into very story-heavy. Because for me, the story is as important, if not more, than the gameplay.
What number was that one on your list?
6.
So 6.
Which I thought would be top 5.
I thought it would be 2.
I have a lot of good, and maybe if the day would change, I might move it. But I feel really good about my top 5. And again, it's my favorite. If you're looking, what are the best games? Last of Us would have been on this list. It's not. God of War probably would have been higher, but it's the games that resonate with me.
Boy, it's not high enough.
God of War, so good. And again, it's the little things. So the story's excellent, almost better by how bad these games used to be. And you take that character and you acknowledge the history while moving forward in this great new direction.
I couldn't believe it was the same game, the same series at all.
I almost thought I would have bet money that it changed developers too, but it didn't. The dev team just grew up.
That's amazing.
Yeah, this is the same company who put sex minigames in every single one of their their games, and you don't have that here.
They didn't do that with Atreus, strangely enough.
No one's even really sexualized. It was just it's a mature story all the way through, and I think they handle the father-son dynamic really well.
Just put your hand on him, dude. Just say I love you.
Yeah, right.
Haven't we all been there, though? Would it change your ordering at all if I told you that God of War 3 came out in March of 2010?
Oh, how interesting. I don't think so, but I didn't know it was that.
I didn't either. I was like, was there any other God of Wars that mattered? Because I know there was a couple, Ghost of Sparta was a thing, and some other one.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently 3, March 2010. It was in the decade. I'm not saying it would change it. I know you like this one a ton, but
well, it's funny because I thought the series was dead pretty much. And it kind of was had they continued going in that direction, but
and now who knows what they'll do next.
Yeah. Well, when you told me to play this, I was like, come on, God of War, really? And I loved it. Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it helps that the gameplay also kind of evolved. It's a little more Dark Souls-esque, but without the frustration. It's easier by a lot, but it kind of has that same mentality. It's so different than the God of War, gameplay-wise, too. So, man. Yeah, and it's a game I want to go back and, experience again. So, that's... All right, so we are in top 5. And it's another game that we recommended today, Persona 5. I'll play other games sometimes, and I'll be like, oh, man, this is fun, but I want to go back to the way that I felt playing Persona 5. I was, enthralled. The story is good, but it's cheating because I love any stories where you have the untouchable villains that no one can do anything for because they're too powerful or they're too, they're too untouchable, and then you have a team who, can figure it out and do something about it.
Yeah.
The characters are great. I like the gameplay quite a bit. So much tooled around finding the weakness of the enemy. But yeah, just going in, you go into a dungeon, you try to get as far as you can get. Sometimes you don't even get all the way through, so it becomes resource management and balancing in that way. And then the constant calendar. That alone. What do I do with this day? Who do I pursue? Do I go for stats or for relationships? And that just keeps me coming back.
It makes it. You can make it your game, which is what I'm finding out as I'm playing this thing. Is you can kind of really make these characters your characters, but not having to go down the Commander Shepard route of making it your character, if that makes sense. Yeah. So you can kind of pick how you want to have this character who's not you live his life while not having to pick. Okay, I'm saying this in this instance. I don't know. It's just a really good representation of making it how you want to make it.
By how you spend your days, not necessarily every single dialogue choice.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is a good way of looking at it, and kind of a more nuanced system in some ways, as opposed to the whole Paragon Renegade split that kind of forced their hand towards the end of that trilogy. I don't know. We've talked ad nauseum about this game. There's a 3-hour review on this very channel, but I mean, like you said, you just feel awesome. And what's cool about it is the days actually became something to look forward to because there was so much to do. Whereas by the end of 3 and 4, you're like, I don't have anybody left I care to hang out with. There's no ways to raise my stats, nothing fun to do. Here, I was like, I could play through this game a second time, duplicate nothing, and probably still have plenty to do.
I almost did, and I want to. And it's a 100-hour game. In a time where I kind of don't have the time for games, I want to go back and play a 100-hour game again.
Yeah.
I'm going to pre-order Royal because I'm like, I know I want to play New Game Plus, but it's too alluring.
You'll have to play it. I understand where you're coming from, but I think you'll enjoy Royal too much not to play it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing about this. So the top 5, it's more story-based, but also these are the kind of games where I said because they're my favorite, they really hooked me in some way that even though God of War and XCOM, they're excellent games, they didn't make me think about them as I was going to sleep at night,
And think about it this way. If Golden was such a breath of fresh air compared to the original 4, and 5 was this good already,
yeah,
it is not guaranteed that it's going to be even better, but I like their chances.
Do you know what this is now? This is the barometer for me. The top 5 games, I would wake up earlier than I would have to just to play the game.
Yeah.
That's my biggest barometer. I sleep until the latest that I can every day. These are all games where I think I did at one point wake up at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. just to get a head start and play it a lot. Yeah. Fire Emblem Awakening. Where do I even start with this? So if you compare just gameplay, 3 Houses in Awakening, 3 Houses blows it out of the water. It's better in almost every way. But there's something about the characters and the first time that this was really a thing with the relationships, especially and building those links. Fire Emblem kind of did it in the past, but nothing to this extent, where it became as addictive to level up as it did deepening these relationships. And just to find out, what is the next interaction between characters going to be? The character, you bond characters, Dave, because you haven't played this game. And then they get a conversation as their support link grows from C to B to A to S. And the support conversations are worth the price of admission alone.
And then they get to marry each other, and then they get to have kids,
and then
you get to pair the kids.
Thank you, yeah. So the level of, and I enjoy like min-maxing, like that's a thing that I like with my games. So you really start going down a rabbit hole of like which two parents can I breed like rabbits to create the best kid, and like in the best skills for that kid.
So you're basically sitting here playing God.
Well, you're playing like enthused Tumblr shipper because you're just pushing two characters together and you're like, now kith.
Yeah.
Because either for story or for their progeny or both.
There were a couple examples where two characters I thought just weren't clicking, and I had a plan for them, and I abandoned ship because I'm like, you guys don't belong together. Either you don't deserve him or he doesn't deserve her. And so that, I mean, it's addictive. It is addictive. And the whole cast is really pretty solid. And it saved the franchise. I mean, it saved single-handedly Fire Emblem. Had this game failed, they would have been done. They like went on record saying that. So
yep,
that's how good it was. Top 3, Metal Gear Solid 5. For all the shit that it gets, this is kind of like a legacy choice, even though it's best of the decade, so it really shouldn't be. But it's the best the series ever was. Story-wise, gameplay-wise, stealth-wise, like they've all, even 4 for all of the advancements it made was still clunky. 5 takes that and it's like an excellent shooter. And again, well, we talked about Breath of the Wild, the level of freedom you have in every level, in every stage, to fuck with the world and mess people up is awesome. I beat a sniper because I ordered a drop, like you get a drop of supplies, Dave, and they like drop a box like next to you and you get it. I had it drop the box on the sniper's head. It was great. I was like, I can't believe they let me do that. But like the story's really good. You get these companion characters that are awesome. It's an open world game. It's the first time he's done that and he nailed it. It's great.
Yeah, that seems to be a really big trend lately of a lot of these long-running series where they're like, all right, well, let's go into the foray of open world, because that's been what's popular in things like Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, that type of thing. So it's interesting to see these formulaic things go into this open world arena. And
I don't really like the trend overall, but like when they nail it, they really nail it. But yeah. I'm kind of like you said, I'm so sick of everything being like, now it's open world again. It's like I appreciate sometimes just a really linear Outer Worlds. One of the reasons I like it, it's fairly linear. Mm-hmm. You get exploration and there's choice that you can make, but you're not like, here's a planet, explore for the next 10 hours, have no clue where you're going. Yep. Like, I'm sick of that.
I mean, Final Fantasy X is my favorite Final Fantasy of all time, and it's basically a straight fucking line. Like, here, walk on this line, don't go anywhere else.
Yeah, right. Final Fantasy 13 is that, but literally. Like, if you look at the map, it's just lines straight ahead.
Actual hallways.
That one actually, that sucks. Mass Effect 2. This was their like refinement of like the modern RPG, where it's not micromanaging 50,000 skill points. As you know, Dave, you've played this. Oh, and Chris, you played it too. You focus just in kind of tracks. So the leveling is great. The gunplay is far improved from the first one. I mean, that's like an understatement. But it might be the best story in gaming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up there between your character dying in the very beginning and then as they unfold this mission to collect, and they mix a few different genres, but like you get like the, Seven Samurai vibe. You're assembling a crew to go on a suicide mission where the decisions actually matter because your characters can die if you fuck it up.
Mm-hmm. I get the "you son of a bitch, I'm in" vibe from that, like a heist movie type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So they do it great. They keep up the momentum through the whole thing. It's probably a 25 to 30 hour game that just whips by.
Well, and you missed the best part of that game. The bad guy in it, Harbinger.
Harbinger is great. The final boss is like okay, but like who really cares? That's okay. Yeah, by that point. And all the side characters are great, and all of their side missions are so good. I don't think they gave a fetch quest or if they did, it was pretty rare. Every side quest was like, it's going to be very character driven. You're going to get to really learn about this person. It's going to be like fun, new things that you're doing every time.
Yep.
It's great.
The only negative, the mining, I guess. That's about it.
I didn't even mind that much.
Yeah.
Because it's quick.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it, you're not like, oh man, I can't wait to go back to the mining. But everything, the rest of the package is just so solid.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you're looking at the best two parts of any series ever, like Empire Strikes Back is up there. Like Mass Effect 2, I think vies for that throne.
Mm-hmm.
It's bold words I'm saying, but you're agreeing. So
I'm agreeing.
Wait till you see my list.
Okay. Witcher 3. It's the best. It's the best. You guys can have your number ones, and that's fine. It won't be correct because it's not going to have Witcher 3 because you didn't play it. The best game of the decade, easily. One of the best games ever. Excellent story. Excellent side quests. So much variety. There's like side quests. There's monster hunts. There's the gear tracking where you go and like improve Geralt. The writing is amazing. And then the gameplay is good too. If you play it on easy, it's just kind of fun swordplay. The harder you go up, you really start needing to use like potions and decotions and all those different things to oils for his blades. There's a level of complexity that's like wherever you want it to be. And like it takes 5 books and more technically and 2 games. And we're looking at things like Mass Effect 3 and the most recent Star Wars can't stick the landing of all these, the burden of expectations. And Witcher 3 absolutely nails it. And then releases 2 DLC packages for extra content that also nail it. It's just like it's an embarrassment of riches for this franchise. And like all those things combine for the best game of the decade.
Wish I had anything for you, but
yeah, no, nothing.
Nothing.
It's on one of my lists.
Well,
one of his lists for the most overrated. No, it's great. And then you know what?
Out.
For what it's worth, the Gwent in that game is really a fun part too.
Well, I mean, yeah, it made it was an honorable mention on the best of the decade from a game within a game. So
yeah.
Yep.
So, Dave, that's another recommendation that I would have for you too.
Yeah. And I've been trusting your recommendations overall. I mean, the past few I've played, I'm enjoying. So we'll see how it goes. So I guess we're doing mine and then Chris's to finish it out. So I'll kind of fly through some of these because there's a lot of crossover, Shaun, with you and I.
Oh, good.
So
give me your unique takes, though. We have time, I think. Kind of.
I've got number 10, Tetris 99. Chris named the game of the year in 2019. I'm in agreement with it. It's so simple, so fun, very easy to enter if you're even not really a non-gamer. I love it.
I'm borderline on this one because is it enough new? And you both, I think, would argue yes, but like my issue is it's just Tetris.
You're right, but the adding so many people all at the same time, getting people in. I mean, granted, you're not having any interaction with them, but you've played, people have played one-on-one Tetris before where you're like, oh, here, throw this lines. And then all of a sudden, there's lines being thrown all over the screen constantly. You're hearing KOs. You're hearing little bling-bling when you're getting your badges. You're just so much is going on, yet the game is really still straightforward in Tetris at the same time. It's a combination of the craziness with the Tetris that's just fun.
A lot of surprising depth to it, and more strategy than you'd expect, considering at the end of the day, it's more about how you build your stack and clearing out lines as efficiently as possible, but factoring in all the new players and everything that's moving around adds a layer that I don't think anybody expected when it dropped out of the blue.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention, I mean, if you can you can feel yourself getting better and better over time, is you can start aiming for people. Like that's one of the fun things. It's like, oh, I see this person has a bunch of red on their screen. Aim for them. Start hitting them hard. You can really like try to work harder to clear some stuff out. So
I'm going to need you to nail number 9 because I'm on the fence about number 10.
I'll tell you now, it's not in my top 10.
Well, number 9, I have Persona 5, and this I will put with an asterisk. Only because I haven't finished it. And it might move up. It might have moved up had I finished it. But I'm in the middle of it. I am on the second palace currently, so I'm working on it. I mean, a lot of the reasons Shaun said is why it's fun and the characters are fun. Ryuji gets on my nerves, I will say.
He's extra. I adore the extra, but he is extra.
He's a sweet boy who's trying his hardest, and at times he's extremely grating.
For real? God, it drives me nuts.
I think the actor's having fun with it too because he starts delivering the lines like you just did.
Yeah.
One of my only complaints. They gotta go to school on Saturday. The fuck is that?
Welcome to Japan, where they care more about education than the United States of America.
It'd be really nice to have that extra day and evening to do other stuff instead of.
They also only have a 2-month summer and a 1-week winter break or some nonsense.
Yeah, but they got a golden week, so there's that.
Yeah. Don't you want to kill Morgana though? When she is like, all right, let's just go to bed tonight, and I'm like, no, I have shit I want to get done.
Believe me, the fan base has gone ham on Morgana, and it'll be interesting to see how Royal handles it. They've already mentioned up front it's going to be less of that.
Oh, good.
No, I want to go downstairs. No, you're tired. Go to bed.
You're tired. No, I'm not. Yeah,
you need to get ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow's like an assembly. I don't need to go to bed early for an assembly. No, you're going to bed.
You better get the fuck to bed.
I will cut your throat when you sleep, you son of a bitch.
All right, number 8, BioShock Infinite.
I really did, either at the bottom of the list or on an honorable mention.
I'm surprised they didn't get even on honorable mention.
Yeah, I thought honorable mention was guaranteed.
There's just too many games, but man, I love it. I'll let you talk about it, but
I mean, it's such a weird twist from this very compact, constrained feeling you had in the first 2 BioShocks. You're underwater, pressure all around you. This one, up in the air, everything's open. It's very similar in gameplay, but completely different at the same time. The time movement, some of the weird time distortions. Having some 1900s barbershop quartet sing "God Only Knows." God Only Knows by the Beach Boys from the 60s is really jarring in the beginning of the show, in the beginning of the game. So, I mean, overall, the gameplay is fantastic. The ending, I don't know. I mean, it's been discussed up and down. Once you understand, it's okay, I get it, but it's kind of seemed to make complicated to be complicated. The last boss I did not like at all, though, I will say. The last boss is kind of dull, I thought.
Who is the last boss?
It's like a bird, like a metal bird, basically, if I remember right. So, anyway, I mean, overall, fantastic game, though. Good story. Keeps you on your toes.
Man, I love it. I've said it before. I love the ending. I love the world building, like you said. The fact that you start uncovering there's a guy who is seeing portals where he's stealing music and other shit from these other dimensions is really cool. And Dave, if you haven't played the DLC, you should check it out because it connects to the first 2 BioShocks.
That's going to be very unlikely since it was on my Xbox and my Xbox is dead. So
yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, good luck. But I bet you the collection is on the PS4.
Yeah, you probably could.
So, anyways.
All right, that was number 8. Number 7 is going to be Portal 2. Good expansion of the original Portal into a full-fledged game as opposed to the original Portal that was not.
Extended demo?
Yeah, exactly. J.K. Simmons steals the show. I mean, as his role as Cave Johnson. Just so good. Gameplay's fun. Stephen Wheatley, again, those two together are fantastic. And then you still got the snippiness of,
GLaDOS?
GLaDOS. Oh, I blanked. I'm sorry. Yes, and he gets the fantastic lines of GLaDOS. I mean, her saying, "Are you having fun? That's good, because I'm a potato." Still just sticks with me.
I mean, I could have expected that they would kind of have a team up, but it was still delightful the whole time.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, it expanded on the first game into a much better overall game. The 2-player mode, whatever. It was okay, but it was kind of weird at the same time. So
one of the best puzzle games ever.
Yes. Yeah. It just made me laugh. I mean, to this day, I just kind of chuckle to myself thinking, space!
Space! We're going. Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because I really like the first Portal, but like you said, 2's pretty much just better in every way. And it's kind of a delight both in gameplay and in story/conversation. So I
actually prefer the first one because I love that self-contained story and where am I? What the fuck is happening? But 2 is an expansion on everything that 1 did well. So I get it.
Which is what you want to see from a sequel, not like Left 4 Dead 2.
Yeah.
Number 6, pretty much already covered it. Mario Odyssey. I wish I would have gotten farther, and I still need to. I've just got a lot of games I'm playing right now, so it's kind of tough. But, I mean, overall, we've talked about it, just built on everything that was good about Mario and made it better.
I just think when it's a good game, the difficulty enriches the experience. BioShock Infinite, I played it on the extremely hard mode, and it changed what powers I needed to use. It changed the complete dynamic, and same with Mario. When you get into some of those harder moons, you really appreciate the depth that's there.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think we need to speak with that one anymore. I mean, kind of covered it. But
yeah.
Well, we'll speak on it some more when it's on my list.
All right, there we go. Number 5, Fallout New Vegas. My favorite Fallout game.
Controversial.
Yes, it is probably controversial, but it is.
I don't think so. I think generally New Vegas is the most liked Fallout game.
Oh, just for me.
Oh.
Okay.
You guys are right. Three are New Vegas, but a lot of people preferred New Vegas.
I prefer 3 to New Vegas myself.
Yeah.
I preferred New Vegas. I liked 3 a lot. 4 is just dull, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
it feels soulless, even though I still enjoyed it. But
yeah.
But Fallout New Vegas, maybe. I think I've talked about this before, how there's a part of me that is a big nerd for maps and like understanding where I am in location, where things are in the real world. And the fact that I kind of knew like some of the roads and stuff that led into Vegas. I've been to Vegas, before, and I kind of am familiar with the area. And I'm walking around thinking like, oh yeah, I remember being there in real life. Oh, I remember driving over the Hoover Dam. Like those type of things just got me into the game so much more. I mean, some of the factions that you get there are just kind of like, well, that's just weird, but whatever. It was still fun. I don't know, just there's a lot to this game that I just really, really enjoyed.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, like I've been here, but it's like after a nuke has devastated the world.
Exactly.
But exactly. I could see that. That's pretty cool.
So, but overall, 3 was fantastic. It's not, but 3 was in the 2000s, so can't put
your
that
number 5 is too high. Like that being your number 5. That's an error. That's a strike 2.
Uh-oh.
Wait, what was 1?
I don't remember, but I'm sure 1 has happened.
I mean, you were on the fence on Tetris 99, so I don't think that counts as a strike.
That's a half strike.
Half strike.
Okay, there we go. 1.5 strikes.
You foul ball. You fouled it.
The other half strike was you being born.
It's 1 full strike.
Oh, so we're at 2.5 actually.
Let's
see. The number 4, Mass Effect 2. Talked about it. Fantastic.
It's almost a strike for being too low, but I want to hear what you have to say about it.
It's just, it's a fantastic game. Don't get me wrong. It's the one that I really played and enjoyed a ton. Maybe, I don't know if it's just the timing of when I played it or something about it, but I almost like Mass Effect 1 more than 2, but 2 is fantastic. I don't know. Maybe it's just I liked how Mass Effect 1 started. I don't know. I think
you've killed me.
Well, that's 3.5 strikes now.
You've killed me.
What does that even mean?
Like 1 is great, and the world building, it does so much work to get these characters and this world going. Mm-hmm. But 2, it's just like, okay, now that you have all the like the range of this universe, we're gonna narrow it in until it's really focused, awesome story.
And it was really good. I don't know. Maybe it's just a nostalgia aspect of it. It just goes so blown away by Mass Effect 1 of like, wow, this is an amazing society they built. It's so cool. But I mean, overall, Mass Effect 2 is fantastic. I have no complaints with it. Really,
okay, that's a quarter strike. So you're in the danger zone, but because it was in the top 5, I'm gonna let it slide.
All right, number 3, God of War. Again, so we're gonna have a lot of crossover in this. God of War is fantastic, so good. I talked about it before. I love the low stakes aspect of it. I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sprinkle my mom's ashes. That's what we're doing. We're not trying to like. Yeah, you end up dealing with gods and stuff like that, but like. Overall, it's not like, oh, yeah, Zeus is trying to end the world, so we have to go kill him. No, we're just trying to sprinkle some ashes. That's it.
So when the second one goes into Ragnarok, are you going to be disappointed, or did they do the work to, like, to hook you? Okay,
no,
great.
They laid the groundwork. And so there's only so much, there's only so much you can do at a low stakes. You do kind of have to accelerate that in that instance. But for a starting point of this, building Atreus, building the relationship between the two of them, I think it was really easy to get sucked into it because both of them were hurting so much with losing basically the bond between the father and son, having to figure out how to be friends.
And then, like, all the set pieces were from the moment you get punched in the mouth from a god in, like, the first 20 minutes.
You walk up and this guy's like, hey, I want to see you. And you're like, okay, I'm a god. I'm going to murder you. Oh, I just punched you through a rock and you're fine.
Yeah.
Okay, this
and it just, like, sets, it's so good. And I don't know if you knew this, Chris, it is like a tracking shot, the whole game. Which was a little fatiguing in 1917, but works really, really well for this video game.
Number 2, Breath of the Wild. Again, talked about it, loved it. It is. I don't know if it's my favorite Zelda, but it's up there for sure. I have to think long and hard about what's my favorite Zelda. But as soon as I got the Switch, I dove into this thing and beat it as quickly as I could. So,
I mean, Skyward Sword came out this decade. Are you sure?
What about I like Skyward Sword a lot.
I like it a lot.
I like it too.
Shit.
It's not even on my honorable mention, and I have 15 honorable mentions.
But it's like honing a series compared to completely revolutionizing and leaping forward a series.
They need to remake that game. It's gorgeous, but it looked like horse shit in 480p.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's a lot that I liked about Skyward Sword. It's not enough to put it on the list, but I mean, the sword play in that was fun with the Wii Motion Plus thing.
I agree. For the record, I just want to point out, too, I forgot to say this during Shaun's, but there was one publication I saw that had Breath of the Wild both first and second on its best of the decade. It put the Wii U version number 2.
Wow. That's really classy.
But why?
It was an all Nintendo publication. That doesn't make it much better.
No.
That's really fucking stupid.
I saw that. I was like, what? Why would you ever do that? It was so good it deserves our first and second spot. It's the same fucking game except worse.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right. Number 1, here's going to be the controversial one. Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah, well, there's the third strike. Fourth strike.
4.5.
We're at 4.5 strikes.
I'm at the last one. I loved this game. I am a fan of Grand Theft Auto. San Andreas is my favorite. This one has got fun characters, crazy story things that are going on in it. The same familiarity, because I'm pretty familiar with like the Los Angeles, Southern California area type of thing. The fact that you're switching between characters, I think, put a whole new spin on this game that I really loved. Like Grand Theft Auto 4, you played Nico and whatever. I could not care about this person whatsoever. He's just this dingy guy. And now you've got 3 eccentric characters, all with their own personality traits that have to interact. I don't know. The open world aspect of it, the design, the detail that goes into that game. It is so good. I could play it again. I've beaten it twice, and I could play it again.
Jesus Christ. I think the reason I don't like Grand Theft Auto that much, I respect the hell out of it for what it did. Like, holy shit. How they managed to fit all that in, and it looks as good as it does, and it runs as well as it does, is impressive. The writing is pretty solid when you get to characters interacting. But for the same reason I don't like Minecraft, where it's like, here, you can do anything. There's like countless mods for this game. People think up all crazy sorts of shit. I don't care about that. I don't really want a game where I can do everything. I want to kind of like be on a path and like have it tell me a story. Oh. And the story here is like the heists were such an improvement over 4. Mm-hmm. But it's still and I know this is rich because like a lot of video games do this, but like the mission variety. You go to a place, it's supposed to be fine. It goes bad. There's a shootout. You get away. It's like, okay. And the overall plot doesn't justify that repetition for me. That's why I prefer Red Dead is like the overall story is good. So when it devolves into some of those missions, like it's okay.
Well, and it's something that I think 5 did actually fairly well, is kind of varying that. But yes, they absolutely had okay, here, go pick up this bag of cash. Oh, shit, someone's shooting at me. Oh, my God, I have to drive away and now blow up this car. Like, of course, that happens plenty. But I don't know. There are variations of, you need to go get this photo and then bring this photo back, and that's it. And it doesn't go wrong all the time. Or, even though it was a controversial scene, like kind of that torture scene where you're trying to get people, information out of a guy.
It
didn't go wrong. But it was a different type of a different type of mission, even though it was controversial and probably kind of messed up. But still, I mean, it's Grand Theft Auto 5. What do you expect?
It wasn't Call of Duty 2.
GTA 5 is just going to be one of those games for me that I can respect that it's good and not really enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, broadly speaking, there's two kinds of games. One's that I'm like, am I almost done? And then one where it's like, I hope I'm not done yet. Yeah. And that one is definitely in the latter one of like, man, I hope I'm near the end so I can return it.
That's for me. It was like, fuck, I'm on the last mission. I need to go find 7 other things to do before this last mission.
Yeah,
because I don't want to do that. So
I'll admit I'm in the minority. It's probably good that you're here representing GTA 5 because I don't think it's going to be very well represented on our lists. So good. It's good. So in a way, it's not a strike because I think you're doing something important for the respect of our entity here.
I think I lost track of how many strikes you gave me / took away. Then
you're at
fraction.
You're at 2.99. So you're hanging by the skin of your teeth, man. Yeah.
All right, I have 5 minutes for my list.
No. Come on.
So we're going to have to fly through it. We had a baby Pizza Boy. My list starts with glaring omissions. I think there are 3 in particular that I did not get to this decade that could have been in consideration for my list, but I didn't play them. And that's Breath of the Wild, Witcher 3, and God of War.
I'm surprised that you think Witcher 3 is an omission.
I think it is, and I don't think I'm ever going to play it, because the longer that goes by without me getting to it, the less and less likely it is, which is not the case with the other 2.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm still stunned that you never played Breath of the Wild. Like, I don't know, like, what's holding this up. Like,
it's a lot. From my perspective, it's like, okay, am I ready to dedicate the time it's going to take for this game?
It's a big undertaking. It's the same reason I almost didn't play Fire Emblem Three Houses, because I knew that was also going to be something like that. And I don't know that I'm going to love it. And that's what scares me. Is like, I know Persona 5 going in, I was like, well, shit, this is going to be 80 plus hours. But I also knew I was going to love it. And I loved it even more than I thought I would. So I don't care about the hours there. Here, that weapon thing is going to bug the ever-loving shit out of me. And it's not going to be enough that I'm going to hate the game or anything, and I'll probably still love it. But I think every time I think about playing it, I'm like, oh, my weapons are going to keep breaking. God, I have so little time as it is. I don't want to have to go find another fucking stick on the ground so I can beat these moblins up.
I mean, the nice thing is you almost always have one to switch immediately to, but it is still like, I liked that spear, sword, whatever. Now it's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it was more likely that I had too many weapons than not enough.
Yeah, your inventory is such that you always have a scattering of of various different types of weapons even, and plenty of them at your disposal. It's just like, all right, well, this sword broke, I'm going to switch this spear now, and that broke, so here's this stick, and now, okay, well, that's dead, so I'll throw these bombs at him and hope the timed explosion goes off.
I think you're going to like God of War. It's a much more digestible experience, too.
I think I will, too. Both of you have liked it. I have to play it. I have to keep an open mind. God, did I hate that series.
Oh, yeah.
God, if I hated Kratos.
Yeah, me too.
So it's cool that he has a chance to redeem himself. But it's also not going to undo the sins that came before it either, so we'll see. All right, honorable mention, a section I titled Really Good But Not Quite, and I'll just rapid fire these. Stardew Valley, a lighthearted blast to play. I'm sure people who have enjoyed Harvest Moon, maybe Animal Crossing, might not enjoy this quite as much as I have, but it's my first exposure to that genre, and I love the hell out of it.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And the co-op option that is now available on actual systems and was originally just I think something a fan made, and you could patch it into PC. We played that with like 7 people. So obviously co-op fan, that took it to the next level. Rocket League is on here.
Yeah.
No, it's not critically phenomenal or anything, but it's the game I played the most in the decade. If I look at my PS3's or my PS4's numbers on that game, and then I add the Switch, and I add like a couple hours on PC, it's a disaster. Xenoblade Chronicles is on here, a game that I never fully loved, and another one that desperately needs to be on a more high-res system, but I still enjoyed it quite a bit. Rock Band 3 is on here.
That's I almost put that one.
2010. If it weren't for Rocket League, that would be the game I played the most in the decade.
You're talking about spending time on it. Yeah.
I didn't play it the last 3 years of the decade because I couldn't anymore. So God only knows.
I try to think of how much time we spent in the 2000s to early 2010s whenever I'd come and visit and just be like, oh, yeah, we're playing Rock Band for the next 4 hours.
It was fun, man. For all the hate it gets now, it was a blast.
It's so much fun.
The guitar, good addition. Create a character suite, the best it was. Song list, phenomenal because you could bring in 1 and 2 and Beatles, etc., etc., etc. All the DLC. I mean, we're talking 1,000 songs. Phenomenal. Loved it. Miss it a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Portal 2 is on my honorable mention. Super Mario 3D World is on my honorable mention.
Yeah, co-op was fun.
A game that actually rallied to get into the bottom end of a handful of top 10 lists for the decade. Not better than Odyssey, and almost nobody had it that way, but a game I really enjoyed, and again, co-op. Trails of Cold Steel 2 is on my honorable mention. It's not in my top 10.
I'm surprised.
I'm a little bit too, but once I started ranking them,
that's what I'm saying, man. Yeah.
Tales of Xillia is on my honorable mention.
I love that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's
really good, and maybe the best we're ever going to get from a Tales battle system because I don't like the direction they're going the last couple of releases. We'll see on the new one that's supposed to come out maybe late this year. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney : Dual Destinies is in my honorable mention.
Why?
Just couldn't fit it into my list anywhere, and while I enjoyed it and I liked Spirit of Justice a lot too, they're just not good enough to make the cut.
Yeah, like very good, great stories, but yeah.
Horizon,
I'll go back and play them again at some point, but
yeah, me too.
Yeah,
maybe from the start.
Yeah.
Horizon Zero Dawn is on my honorable mention. really, really well crafted, and nice to see an original IP come through so well. But I don't think it excels in any one way.
It was weird because it hooked me in the beginning, and then kind of like it lessened as the game went on.
I agree.
And then by the end, I was like, okay, are we almost done?
Yeah.
This was good, but yeah.
Like, it's really, really good, but it's not great in any way, I don't think. L.A. Noire is on my honorable mention.
Wow.
For all the flaws of that game that are more about the back end of it and the development cycle than they are about the game itself. I really liked the feel of being a noir detective and going around and accusing people and having Cole Phelps scream at them and doing poorly scripted car chases and not being able to run over citizens because you're a cop. And I don't know. It's not a great game. It has a lot of flaws, but at the same time, when the facial recognition software wasn't being overly obvious, when someone would tell you something, they would go... and you'd be like, I wonder if they're lying. I was making stupid faces for the listeners. When it was actually subtle and you could pick up on clues that way because of how good it was, that was a blast.
I actually think the story ended up in a pretty cool spot, too.
Yeah.
By the end, I was like, it was driving me through the finale. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
I thought it tied everything together nicely at the end. You had some really flawed characters across the board, including Cole. But, man, I just liked that game, even though I recognize it's severely flawed. Tetris 99 is on here. Fallout 4 is on here, despite its flaws. I just like the open world setup that Fallout has. And then my last two are ones that were really close, even closer than like Rock Band 3. Saints Row the Third.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is the perfect balance of being ridiculous, but not too ridiculous, even though I liked 4 a lot. It's also just stupid at times, and not always in a good way. Third, I thought really straddled that line excellently. I might argue 2 is better. It wasn't in this decade. And then the last one, because I don't know what to do with it, is just Jackbox Party Packs.
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
All 6 of them are in the decade because they've just been annual releases since 2014. And, man, there's some winners in there because Quiplash is another game that I played the fuck out of over the course of the last part of the decade, but I couldn't figure out how to put just that in the top 10 or just Jackbox 3, which has that, and Fibbage, and, I couldn't figure it out, so it's down here.
They're incredibly universal. Which of course they are kind of because there's so much variety, but it's the one game where like all of our house and all of our extended friends can play.
Yeah.
Because there's something for everybody. And like that's really rare.
I mean, the fact that you don't even have to pick up a controller to play really kind of helps that. You just pick up your phone. It's like, all right, here, we're going to play. Touch A, B, C, or D, or, type in a thought on this prompt. And that's it. Like, it is really easily accessible.
Yeah. It's a great formula. I don't really love 6 that much outside of Trivia Murder Party 2.
Mm-hmm.
Each one has had at least one clear winner and maybe a couple others I've liked. But as a collective, I almost thought about cheating and including them as the 6 of them and putting it in the top 10. I couldn't do it. I had integrity on my own list.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hold on. I have a work thing I have to answer, and I don't want it to distract me while I'm doing this because I want to be focused. Okay,
sure,
great. Yeah. Number 10 is Final Fantasy XIV, which is interesting because the decade encompasses everything about 14, including its horrific start, its awful beginning where we thought that it was going to kill not only itself, but maybe 11 too, and possibly the whole Final Fantasy franchise. And once A Realm Reborn happened, and they built everything basically from scratch, starting over, what a phenomenal MMO it turned out to be in the end. And by now, I mean, most people would think that I think it's pretty safe to say the last expansion was probably the most liked across the board.
Yeah.
And the 2 before it were also pretty well regarded overall. I mean, it's if you're not into MMOs, you're not going to like it. There's no two ways about it, but there's a lot that it has going for it.
Yeah, Dave, they basically brought in like an expert like director to be like, how can we save this? And he did it. Like he did a phenomenal job. There's more to the story. It was a guy who worked on another series or something similar, and man, he just did phenomenally.
And I mean, you don't see a lot of redemption stories like that in gaming. Usually if something flops, it's dead. And maybe it takes out a whole bunch of other stuff with it, like I mentioned. But in this case, from zero to hero in the literal sense.
Yeah.
I think the fact that it's Square Enix and that's kind of like its thing, they almost had to put the extra money into it to save it,
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it would almost be too embarrassing to have the project cave after a year and a half and be like, well, all that money we spent and all the servers we built and all that are gone. But
yeah.
I mean, it's EA would just screw it, go away. Like a company like that would.
And now you got all this great story content that they keep doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, just the trials, the dungeons, they're still just. And I also have to give it a shout out for having the best soundtrack of any game of the decade, especially when you factor in that it's over 1,000 tracks now. Some old Final Fantasy stuff that's been reimagined, a lot of brand new stuff. Just if I had to pick one game soundtrack, it would be that, and it wouldn't even be close. And that's that. I'm the video game music guy. I would say that without hesitation, even outside of this decade.
Well, it's so much variety. Like you get the vocalist songs, and then you get like the symphony song. Like it's all over the place, but it's cool.
Yeah. Number 9 is The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. And a lot of this, to me, is also sort of an inclusion of Link to the Past. But having a spiritual successor to it, a sequel, God, almost 21 years after the original, something like that, that I thought was really, really well done, was the only complaint I have with it, honestly, is that I think it's a little too short.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it hurts me because I don't remember it as much because I beat it in like 3 days. I was like binging it, but it's like a pro and a con.
Yeah, you can plow through the thing. Unfortunately, like Link to the Past, it's probably wrapped up in a tidy 10 to 12 hours, but I also don't want to hold that against the game because not everything has to be Persona 5 length.
Yeah.
Although it seems like the games I'm really into these days are gravitating that direction, but even so. Number 8 is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Oof, yeah.
I think it's just the collection of everything that's been good about Smash to this point. The balance is impeccable. It's about as good as you're going to get for a game with 80-plus characters now, where almost everybody is pretty viable. Yeah, there's some differing tier lists, but that's unavoidable unless all the characters have the same moves. And now we're moving into the new decade with 6 more characters coming to join the fray. And I love the DLC additions, yes, even the most recent one. And I don't know, between just it's basically like an encyclopedia of Nintendo's past, and now it's expanding its umbrella to include every other system and franchise you can think of. You can see some really ludicrous 8-player game shots where it's like you have Cloud and Mario and Pac-Man and like just these characters, Sonic, Snake, characters that you never as a kid we would have dreamed like we had action figures mashing them together. Like think about the original Smash Brothers was just 12 characters, 8 from the get-go, and we thought that was the best thing ever. I was like, oh my god, Mario and Link, and then you just expand it. It's really, really good.
And you throw in a pretty awesome single-player mode.
Yeah.
And the multiplayer that has been great for ages. And that is an omission on my part. That's a strike for me.
All right, Dave.
A self-imposed strike now.
There's hope. I was surprised it would make your honorable mention at least. I was like, you can't have it this high. We got to like the top 4, and I'm like, he can't have it up here.
I kind of didn't think about it.
I thought about it, but man, fighting games. I wish I would have played them more as a kid, or I don't know, just for some reason, fighting games. I love all the concept. I love what you just said, Chris. Fighting games, though, I just can't do it.
Number 7 is probably the biggest surprise on my list, and it's Telltale's The Walking Dead.
Season 1 or
season
the whole
1
thing?
And only season 1.
Okay, yeah.
Because season 2 has moments. It's very hit or miss in a literal sense almost. And season 3 is a disaster that almost didn't even come to completion. But season 1 and the story of Lee and Clementine is among the most effective storytelling of the decade, including some things that are above it on the list that we haven't gotten to yet. But man, it's a shame the gameplay is so mediocre overall. Otherwise, it would probably be higher.
Yeah.
But just from raw storytelling, I think it's excellent.
That's another game where I cried. Someday I want to compose a list of all the games that made me cry, because it's not very long, but that was one of them. That ending, goddamn.
There's so much to a game that doesn't have to have gameplay necessarily. I mean, it does, but like just if it tells a good story and you feel like you have interaction and decision-making power on that story, that's really easy to get sucked into. I love those games.
And it was just enough gameplay that it made it not quite like a visual novel, and again, I think in a favorable way.
Well, and I love that they run in this trap where do your decisions matter or not, and this was a great example of they don't really, but that's okay because the writing is so good. You're still shaping this version of Lee. And if you're mean to Clementine or not, that doesn't change the ending really, but it makes you feel a certain way in the moment. And I think that's significant.
Makes you feel bad.
It makes you, yeah, for sure.
And of course, at the time, this was much newer. and had not been, I don't want to say run into the ground, but I think Telltale Games have pretty much run their course. I know we have a Wolf Among Us sequel potentially coming now, but at the very least, the explosion of that style of gameplay started here, went a little too off the rails somewhere in the middle, and has come back to a more reasonable level now. But it's important to note that it was pretty innovative at the time.
Yeah.
Does anyone know that there was a Back to the Future Telltale made?
Yeah.
Didn't play it.
I played like the first chapter of it because it was a free download, and I'm like, I'm not paying for this. This is dumb.
Yeah, that was another extension of like we've maybe gone too far here.
Yeah.
Number 6 is Red Dead Redemption 1. You'll note that 2 was not even in my honorable mention because it's not a game that I really enjoyed all that much. Although I will concede that there are some really awesome story moments, and like Shaun said, it's almost like a dessert. But as I get older, I'm not eating as much dessert, especially the most decadent ones, because I take a bite of it and I'm like, that's good, and I push it away.
And I'm all done.
Yeah. And Red Dead 2 was that for me. The first one, because I'm a huge Western fan, was essentially everything I wanted because it was the perfect fusion of Grand Theft Auto without the horseshit story filler and characters I cared about in a setting that I liked. And, man, when John Mushroom is just shooting for his life, and you can't possibly shoot all these fucking lawmen quick enough, but you try your best in Deadeye anyways.
Oh, yeah. Comes out of the barn. Yep.
It's all
I get it.
automatic Deadeye. What a cool story moment and a gameplay moment at the same time, because you realize like these all have guns trained on me, but I'm going to take a few of them out, by God. And isn't that just the Western way to go?
Yeah.
I got to play this game.
You should.
Yep, I got to.
Yeah, it's not as good now, though. And so I played it again after loving 2. Going back and playing it again, 2, obviously, gameplay-wise, there's huge upgrades. But even like some of the writing and the story things, there's more depth to 2. But 1, notably, was the first Grand Theft Auto game I really enjoyed. The first Rockstar. The first Rockstar game that I was like, I really enjoyed that.
I think starting from scratch, I think it won't matter if the second one's better. Or I know what you're talking about, because there's been plenty of times I play a first game, love it, then play the sequel, and then try to go back to the first one, like, oh, it's missing all these cool things that the sequel put in to fix the problems for the first one.
And like the gunplay is not as good in the first one, having played the second one. It's okay, but it feels a little clunky and slow, kind of like Grand Theft Auto 4 when you go back to the original now, but it's okay. Yeah. My number 5 is cheating. And it is Mass Effect Trilogy.
No. I saw some people do that. I think that's a cool idea.
So, my hatred for the opening of 1 has been well documented. It was enough that I didn't finish it. My love of 2, which I agree with you guys, is the best of the 3, and you guys each had those on your lists. Makes a lot of sense. I still enjoy 3 quite a bit.
It's great.
Everything up to the ending is pretty damn good overall. The multiplayer was a ton of fun. I played a ton of that thing.
Yes.
So I'm going to put this one on here because if I had to pick one game, it would be 2, but I don't. Trilogy came out in 2012, and so I'm going to cheat and include it this way.
3 gets too much hate. The extended endings do a lot to alleviate that. You can argue, should they have had to do that, and that's fine, but they help. And then they did some like DLC like closure. There's the party one,
which is really cool.
Yeah, it's all great.
That's a fun send-off, and that's what people wanted. Now, maybe you couldn't do that in the main story. Maybe they could have announced that it was coming in advance and taken some of the sting out of the original 3 endings, which were a disaster. But at the end of the day, once that DLC happened, I did that, and I was like, this is a fitting end to the time I've put into this trilogy.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, maybe you haven't documented this well enough. What was wrong with the beginning of 1?
That was the one where I was in the rover, and the sandworm glitched and couldn't be killed. And I had to reset and undo an hour of progress.
Fair,
and let's be honest, the planet exploration in 1 is not very good.
It's the worst part.
It's basically what doomed Andromeda, because they were like, what was the worst part of 1? Let's expand on that. Now, it was better than 1.
Yep.
But still.
Yeah.
Number 4 is the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I cannot believe that game is 2011. It is now 9 years since then, and we have no idea when 6 might come out.
I have an idea. 2022 at the absolute earliest.
Probably, which will then be 11 years. Now, we've seen 18 versions of Skyrim released since then. You're probably thinking to yourself, is there actually 18? Is that a number he's saying? Is that true? The answer is, I don't know, but it's a lot because there's VR versions and re-releases and master versions and Game of the Year versions and Switch versions, and it's probably double digits. But the bottom line is this. We talked about it earlier, but man, I just loved this game. I poured time into it. You could sort of role play in it if you wanted to. You had the room to kind of play around with it. Yes, the main story was so-so, but man, just being in that world, roaming about this beautiful countryside, shooting animals if you wanted to, having a blast. I loved it.
Serving the Daedric princes, if you're me.
Sure.
Yeah, the DLC. Have you played? I know there's like the vampire one.
I've done all the DLC. Yeah, the vampire one's the one I remember the most because I've only done it once. I played through Skyrim twice, but I only did the DLC once.
Okay.
But yeah, I remember all of the DLC being at least pretty decent overall, maybe even good. So that's number 4, and then the top 3 I don't have to talk about a ton. Number 3 is Persona 5.
Yeah, it's good.
I don't need to say any more about it. I've said enough. Number 2 is Fire Emblem Awakening. I was a little surprised it came in ahead of Persona 5, but I sat there looking at it, and I loved it. Yeah. I don't think we can make Dave play that game, but maybe.
We all, back in our old apartment, like, we all were playing Awakening at the same time. We would come home from work and just play, like, through the night. It was awesome. It was really fun.
Mm-hmm. How much do you have to know previous Fire Emblems?
Zero.
Okay.
We could explain. We could take like 10 minutes to explain some core mechanics as far as gameplay that you would need to know, but story-wise, nothing.
That helps.
Yeah. It's the same thing with Persona 5. It could be like, yeah, I mean, other than like some spell names and some conventions, the story you don't need to know anything about.
Yep.
And then number 1 is Mario Odyssey. Unbelievably, as I was building out my list, I kept looking for ways to drop it, and nothing came above it because I had no more fun playing any game in the decade than Mario Odyssey. And it was the one that I don't get up early to play games because I work late, but I stayed up much later than I should because I'm like, well, you know, I got the star here, or the moon, but I can go get this moon over here. I see that one, and then, well, I'll just get that one, and then it's 4 a.m, and you're like, ah, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea in that game, it's so much fun where you're like, you climb to the top of a peak or a mountain or something, and you look over to the left, like, there's a moon over there. I gotta get that someone somehow. Or you go look to the right, and you're like, okay, there's a big building over there. There's a moon in there somewhere. It's just like, you know, they're all around, and you just like gotta keep that mental thing in your head. Like, I'm going after this one, but there's another one over there that I need to go back to.
Yep.
So I love collecting costumes. I thought that was a lot of fun, being able to play dress up. You can have your pepperoni Mario. I loved, to me, the biggest thing I liked in this game, although we've talked about a lot of things I did, but haven't mentioned this yet, I loved the rule of 2. I love that anytime you went into a pipe or a side area or whatever, the game taught you there's 2 moons here. There's one kind of on the beaten path and one somewhere hidden or off to the side or a harder challenge, and that was a rule. So you knew, other than like the main worlds, if I go into someplace on the side and I've only found one moon, there's another one here somewhere. I'm going to find this thing because I know there is one.
Yep, that was great, and more compelling, like. You want to get all the moons, and Zelda went, like, you had the Korok seeds, and you're like, what? Who's going to, what the fuck? There's 900 of them. The moons, though, were, like, addicting. Like, you cared, and you wanted to do it because the challenge to get them was satisfying and fun.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then they point you a little bit in the right direction. You know, if you had the amiibos, if you had, spent the coins on it, they could at least point you in the right direction of what to try to look for. The Korok seeds just, like, start picking up rocks, dumbass.
Yep. And you know what? If there had been a post-game to Breath of the Wild where they brought in more Korok seeds, I would have just turned it off immediately. I'm saying that having not played the game, because I know I'm not going to engage with them. This had a thing where there was like, here's a whole bunch of moons we just scattered across the area, which Dave hasn't gotten to yet. And I was like, awesome.
Yep.
I didn't see it as an extra task or a burden. I was like, great.
I was disappointed when I found all the moons, because I'm like, now it's over.
Mm-hmm. Because you're not going to do anything else. You're not going to go master the jump rope game or the beach volleyball. Like, that's it. We're done. So, yeah, I was surprised to see it hang at number 1 because it started there, and I was like, I'm going to put, like, Awakening. I loved Awakening. Like, Persona 5. God, I love Persona 5. It never faltered.
I wonder if we were to do a point system, Odyssey would be way up there. Persona 5. Fire Emblem Awakening would have to be. Mass Effect 2 would be way up there. Or the trilogy, however you want to cut it.
God of War would be. I mean...
Yeah.
We would talked about it at least, so yeah. I mean, there's a lot of crossover.
That's on 2 people's list. Portal 2 would probably be up there because it's fringe for all 3 of us, but all 3 of us liked it. Yeah, I mean, that would probably be about 10 right there. And if we can fill in some of the blanks on Dave, then we'd be all the way there. Like, if he plays Red Dead, I have a feeling he would like it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Or Red Dead 2, same thing.
Probably.
It's sometimes we're lacking in, like, movies and TV. And I know those are like our main things, Dave. We just don't. see everything. We don't go finding like the independent theater that's showing a one night only some movie that no one's ever heard of. For games, I think we're pretty good about playing a lot of the good acclaimed stuff, and so I feel good about these lists.
Well, I think for games, it's almost easier to be a series and kind of stick with the series and have a next iteration of one. We're talking about God of War, part of a series, Mario, part of a series, Zelda, part of a series. I mean, so that stuff is kind of easier to find what we want to play. It's like, oh, good, the new Mario game is coming out, the new Zelda is coming out, so I'm going to play this. And when they continually make good games, that makes it so you're excited for the next one to come out.
That's actually a really good point, and makes me a little sad, is if you were to break down how many games on our list are part of a franchise.
I mean, a lot of them, Grand Theft Auto, Fallout, BioShock, Mario, Portal. Portal's kind of borderline on that one because it was unique, but Zelda, Mass Effect, like all of these are... I mean, Mass Effect was unique in the sense of how it came out, but like a vast majority of them are part of big series.
He had Red Dead 1. That's like one of the only examples we have. So interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few like Stardew Valley, Rocket League, but those didn't make my top 10.
Yeah.
So I mean, the point still stands, and I think it's also sort of self-selecting. I think you're absolutely right, Dave. But at the end of the day, franchises that do well are going to become series. So that pedigree sort of speaks for itself if a series endures and doesn't just die off, like, say, Mega Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love Mega Man. I'm sorry.
But the Heavy Rain was such a good game. Why did they make that one into a series?
Well,
they did kind of.
You can argue that David Cage's games themselves are a series, and they're all self-indulgent and weird as hell.
They have so much potential.
Did Heavy Rain come out in the 2010s? It had to have, right? I didn't even consider it.
It's going to be close.
I bet it did.
It was 2009.
Well, it was right when we were living at that old February 18th, 2010.
Oh!
It really was close.
I'm putting it on honorable mention because I really liked it.
I can't put it on my honorable mention. I did enjoy it. It's probably the best one of the group, but yeah.
Better than Indigo Prophecy, if that same type of game.
It sure is hell better than Beyond Human.
Didn't play that one.
Yeah, don't.
Okay.
So, that is our lists of the best games of the decade, and if you've forgotten because it was 75 minutes ago, Dave's list of the top 10 movies for himself for the decade. I like our lists. They're all different, but again, we're not trying to unify them. That's why I want to do them individually, because if we unify them, then we're going to end up with some omissions from things that we enjoyed a lot individually.
Yeah.
This way we can all touch on our own favorites, and we still had a decent 4 or 5 overlap for the most part.
Remember when we were going to try to just do one show? And then we spent 75 minutes on pretty much just games.
Yeah. Oops.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I realized about 30 minutes into last episode, I was like, even if I talked for 3 seconds about each of my honorable mentions, that's 4 minutes. And then,
yep.
Oh no.
Oh my.
It's all right. Stretch that content out. We're beholden to no one but ourselves. And next week will probably be a Suns cast, and we'll see how that goes. We could talk for that for 75 minutes. It's been a month since we've done one. We went to 2 games. They've been all over the place, and who knows?
Fans, if you're out there, I encourage you to stick around for that episode. I'm going to start with some inner rage about Suzanne Collins and the new Hunger Games book. It might not be what you're expecting if you've been following the internet. And then we're going to do a Suns cast, which you should also stick around for. Because it's the boys with an eye having fun, talking, hilarity, but just, about the Suns. You'll learn something.
Is there a Z in that too?
No, it's an S.
We're not illiterate, Dave. That's the end of this episode. In between shows, find us at objectionnetwork.com or on social media at Team Objection. It's youtube.com/Objection Network for our videos 7 days a week. And finally, you can send emails to the show to objectionnetwork@gmail.com. See you next time.